and welcome into the Midheaven in Astrology Masterclass. I'm really excited to hop in with you all and break down one of the most critical aspects in astrology and concerns to your career, status, fame, and especially if you're someone who wants to create art or content or anything along the lines of that. The energetic signature of your midheaven is going to teach you how to actively utilize that within your world. So for those of y'all who might be new to here, welcome. I hope that you came through because of the North Node video, because I was really excited for have that launch off. But that also means that I've become a YouTube partner, and I've been very proud to do so. And YouTube's been something on my heart for a very long time. I know some people have been coming through because they've liked the master classes thus far. And it's been super fun to be able to, contribute back to a platform that I know I personally have learned so much off of. And yeah, let's just get this. I'm just super excited to explain everything for today. So what I ended up doing, just to let you all know, I have an ebook that's also going to be subsidiary to this masterclass. And the link is in the description to that. If you want to check it out, it's basically just a written rendition of some of the more information about the midheaven and also the IC in astrology. So although we'll be talking mainly about the midheaven and how that works, we're also going to be talking about its opposite, being the IC. But welcome in, everybody. Haven't had enough time to watch the North Node video all the way through, but excited to finish this. No problem. This is the whole reason why this is up, is so you can check it out at any given point. And just the fact that y'all are here live with me or right after means so much. And shout out to all the new people as well. But yeah, let's just get down to it. So the midheaven in astrology. Why is this so important? Well, first of all, the midheaven you have really is dependent on what time you were born. Typically, it ends up resonating directly with the rising sign that you have, right? And it typically will be on the 10th house space. Now, granted, there are exceptions to this rule. I'm just fixing the lighting. There are exceptions to this rule, right? But for the most part, the MCs representing the 10th house space, it is what is it that you need to lean into in order to achieve success. So if you look up at your birth chart, no matter how you look at it, the rising sign will always be at the fullest left side. I'm on the wrong side, I think, for this, right? But it's going to be all the way on the left side, and the MC is always going to be at the top of the chart. It's going to be somewhere up there with something that says MC pointing down. Now, mind you, the midheaven is where we need to lean into camera quality on point. We out here anyway, but that's what we really need to lean into to start to fulfill this, not just our purpose, which is the North Node, but I think the midheaven is like the achievements of what we want as far as worldly is concerned, right? So let me start to gear you in as to what your midheaven is going to impact like. So a lot of the times when we look at different celebrities or different figures, we might see them in a certain light. However, in real life, they could be completely different. In real life, they might be leaning way more into their rising sign. Whereas when they're acting or when they're doing something important, they might be leaning into what their midheaven is. So just to kind of give you that differential, even when we think of people who have had prominence in general, if they have been referred to as great, typically their greatness is reflective of where their midheaven is. So how does this work with you? How does this work with the everyday fellow, so to speak, or those who are really ready to tap into their greatest potential? Now, the midheaven, I want to divide into the elements for a moment, right? So the midheaven in each element is going to represent an overarching character type, I would say. And in between, inside of the ebook, I ended up kind of like tapping into a little bit more of the archetypal nature of things. But let's start to go through the elements of that. So make sure that you have your MC up with you as we break this down, so you can see where yours is at in this process. So I'm going to start off first with the midheaven in fire. All right. So if you look at the MC portion and you have your midheaven in either Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius, your main point the greatness, the success, the fame, the creation of what you want to do has everything to do with the way that you're willing to show up as yourself. As a matter of fact, there's a certain power in the individualism that the Midheaven and Fire ends up giving you. So you might end up rising up to the top of, let's say, the field that you're working in, right? And the only way that you end up actually making those big hurdles, that you end up making those big waves, is if you choose to stick within your personality. If you actually actively use your persona. There's certain people that are so much like, oh, this is who they are, right? You know, those people who are like, oh, that's just John. John's always like this. Or like, oh, Stacey's just like that, and so is her mom. She got it going on. No, but for real, the concept of like the midheaven though, it's like when you get to point out that somebody and they're like, yeah, they're so unique, or they have so much oomph in this one area that we kind of just be like, yeah, like this is that. If someone's ever referred to you as like, oh, that's just blank, chances are you have something in fire, but most likely your midheavens is in fire. Because it's your personality, it is your inner weirdo, it is your originality that people are really going to be inspired by. As far as that's concerned too, having a midheaven and fire, is it similar to shadow work? That's actually a really good question. I think shadow work is closer to your fourth house, whereas what we're going to talk about, I'm gonna explain that afterward. So there is like a shadow work portion to this. This is the activation portion. That's a great question, because with the midheaven and fire, right, this is one of those situations to where when you step up into the prowess of who you are, everything else comes into play, right? You might have started a business thinking that you had to include everybody else, but chances are you might even be better off when you just did it by yourself. You might have took a better trip when you just did it by yourself. You might have had a better part in the show when you just stepped into what you knew and didn't listen to everyone else's advice. You've seen it before where they're like, yo, everyone told me to go this way, but I went that way. That's the form of individuality that the midheaven and fire is trying to give to people. So just to keep that in mind, if you have the midheaven in either Aries, Leo, and Sag, that's going to be the way that people end up really seeing your worth and your value. And that's how people start to want to connect with you. You have to be the fullness of yourself. So that's a little bit on that, and I'll explain each individual sign afterward, and I'll make sure to check up on everybody. So make sure y'all keep commenting, any questions, anything's in between. By the time I end up finishing each element, I'll check through the comments just to make sure everybody's on the same page, and we'll keep it moving from there. So we have the midheaven in earth signs. Now, if you have your midheaven in either Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, I'm gonna let you know right now, your midheaven, fame, fortune, that destiny portion of you actively doing things has everything to do with you taking things slow. The thing with midheaven and earth is that you achieve greatness not in a moment's notice. When people have midheaven and earth, they have to build their greatness over time. Midheaven and fire, you can kind of show up and be like, I'm the most of myself. And as long as you mean it, things move in that direction. With people that have midheaven and earth, Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn, you have to make sure that you have things in place that also prove the worth that you're bringing to the table, right? So when you have that, one of the biggest portions of having midheaven and earth is that you should definitely make sure that you have a body of work to show for. And you could have like this, there can be steps and stages, so to speak. When I think about this earth placement, right, I think about the concept back probably like 10 years and some change ago, or a little bit more than that, honestly. But back in the day, before the streaming platforms took over, if you were someone who would rap, a lot of rappers and the people that we know now, they had to go through and literally make mixtape after mixtape after mixtape just to kind of put their name out there. And then by the time that their album came out and it got monetized, people would start to flood in to buy the album based on all the other free things that they put out beforehand. Now, this is similar to a midheaven and earth, because midheaven and earth, you have to kind of prove your value through your consistency. which can get really daunting sometimes. However, this actually makes for people to see you more as a professional in whatever it is that you do. So with Midheaven and Earth, it might take you longer to achieve that status that you're looking for, but you have the status that once you reach that portion, you never have to question yourself a day again in your life, because then that's when the money starts pulling through. That's when the finances start pulling through. That's when people start to respect you as a leader within your field. So if you have your Midheaven and Earth, just know slow and steady wins the race. And your main goal in general is to make sure that you have a body of work to show for. You doing something tangibly that shows you the amount of time that got put into things really will help you excel when it comes to the things that you want to put across. So just know, big body of work, the more the better. And it's not about rushing it. It's about the consistency of how often you're willing to put yourself out there, and make sure that you definitely stay in your power in the process of doing so. So that's going to be over here for the Midheaven and Earth. I see a bunch of y'all commenting and stuff. Keep it going. I'm going to make sure that everyone's good. I did not do the Midheaven and Water yet either, but let's get into the Midheaven and Air, right? So if you have your Midheaven in an air sign, be that Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, there's a certain aspect when it comes to you where people really want to hear what it is that you have to say, or you're ready to kind of debate the other ideas that people have. When you have the Midheaven in air, you're supposed to bring up those ideas, those words, those notions, those thoughts that bring people into sometimes you're supposed to be a little controversial if you have your Midheaven in air. I'm just going to be honest with you. The reason why is because think about thought leaders. Think about people who have said something to shock the world in certain cases, right? There's people who utilize their words and their ideas to really push forward culture, to push forward motion, to make sure that people change their minds about things that could have been plaguing them. And that's kind of the goal of a Midheaven in air, is that you're supposed to bring up those communications that may be difficult for most people. If you have your Midheaven in air, a lot of the times it's when you say that thing that's a little bit off the wall where you're like, oh, this isn't going to land, that really will change the course of, let's say, something at your job. I'm going to give an example. Let's say you're at your job and they promise y'all, hey, this Friday, everybody gets off. And they promise that to everybody. It gets closer to that time frame. They're demanding, hey, everyone needs to be all hands on deck. There's a huge project everyone has to do. And everyone was scared to be like, yo, you had the day off. A Midheaven in air is a person to bring that up, is to bring that controversy. As a matter of fact, you might even be in the full meeting with everybody, have to raise up your hand and be like, yo, aren't we not supposed to be here today? Now, granted, this does create a friction. There is this aspect a lot of times with Midheaven and air where you might have to say something that like you at the Thanksgiving table, you might have to say that thing to get people going in a certain sense. And the reason why it's so important for you to consistently speak your truth, having a Midheaven and Gemini, is because that's when people start to really gravitate to you. Most people that have Midheaven and air would be great at podcasting, who would be great at just any form of communication like that. Or they also make excellent writers for those who are the introverted brand of that Midheaven and air, because the idea of sharing information, sharing thoughts and ideas, and to think about different lanes of things is where the Midheaven and air goes to shine. So just know communication is one of the biggest factors to your success and how you can break into your main character energy specifically. Okay, cool. I see a lot of people coming through. Okay, I see y'all. Appreciate the love. All right. So let's get into the Midheaven and Water. I'll go back and look at things. Make sure you have any questions, throw those in there right now. And I want to explain this for y'all in this process. And if you haven't checked out the ebook, or you wanted to check out what's coming up next, I'm having another lunar eclipse video coming on Saturday where I'm going to be going live talking about this upcoming eclipse season. And we have the Midheaven and Astrology video. This is the video and the ebook for y'all to check in as well. All right. So Midheaven and Water. Let's break this down. if you have a midheaven in water, it is literally in your main character energy, in your main character archetype, to let yourself be psychic, to let yourself see the things and feel through the feelings that other people may not be bringing to the surface. There's something when it comes to having your midheaven in water where you're really able to like feel beyond what people are trying to say. So this is like you're listening to someone give a speech, and while they're giving a speech, you're listening and you're not feeling that they're coming from a real place. And you're like, that's weird. I feel like they're not coming from a real place. I feel like they might be hiding a little something. There's something a little bit off about this person. Do they really enjoy? Are they really believing the things that they're saying? People that have midheaven in water, you're really psychic, right? And even in terms of, let's say, relationship with midheaven and water, you're like, yo, does this person love you as much as you think they do? You see it for other people, you see it within yourself. And a lot of the times people that have midheaven and water, they get really confused because they're like, yo, like, I have all these emotions. I do my best to be honest about my emotions. Why are people hiding the feelings that they have? And this is kind of the power of that midheaven in water, is that you're kind of bringing and bridging in the comfortability of people tapping into their soul's essence, while you also keeping and honoring the way that you feel about things. The issue that can pop up sometimes with midheaven in water is that you feel like you can heal and help everybody. And although that is true, there's a lot of that emotional world that you shouldn't take on for yourself, because once you typically do, you think that's your feeling. So when it comes to having a midheaven in water, just know that the feelings that you get are experiences, not necessarily always where you are either. But then again, people that are speaking on that midheaven in water, you are healers by nature. You know what people need to heal. You know how to help people. You know how to say that little something to get people riled up. And you know exactly how to get people to feel into their truth. Not everyone's going to accept that. For the people that do, those are the people who are going to lead into a better advancement. Those are the people that you're going to want to stick around. And those are the people who you're going to have a connection with that you don't really have to speak. They just feel where you're coming from. Right. So yeah, that's going to be the midheavens, at least briefly, through the elements. And I am going to explain each one in a minute. I just want to go through the comments with y'all real quick, see what's going on, say what's up to the people. You know how the drill go. So what did I miss? Let's find out. All right. Stacys Mom has indeed entered the chat. What's up, Stacys Mom? You beautiful. Have a good time. I'm excited to get more info on the midheaven. Me too. You know, we're doing our best we can. Can an MC and North Node be in the same sign? Yes, they can. It's a very rare occurrence. And just to let everybody know, as far as their midheaven is concerned, if you do have any planet or thing on the midheaven, that's the planet that's low key going to be a solution to most of your problems. And it sounds weird to say, but it's like if you have your sun on your midheaven, you're going to want to lean into your sun sign, because that's where the universe is going to try to like bridge in your events. You might even be so caught up in playing the role of that midheaven that sometimes you might need to step back out of your purpose to be like, whoa, wait a second. So when you have, sorry, words are hard, you know, but if you have the North Node and the midheaven in the same sign, that's going to be something to really push forward, not just your destiny, but like that is a very special placement. So if anyone in here that has that, just know that like your destiny and your higher self and forms are all working together at once. And so when you do make those big moves, that's why they create such a splash around you. So I hope that gives a little bit of context to that, but I did want to explain that in that process. So yes, they can be in the same sign. Make schedules. Yep. Clicked at the exact right moment for sure. Glad you're covering this. Appreciate you. Let's see. Saying, people are talking more. Oh gosh. Do palmistry. Okay. I see a lot of stuff right now, and I know my brain's going to get distracted, but I do appreciate the love. Y'all for showing up. I just realized I'm at a certain point. Happy astrological new year, by the way, to everybody. I have been really slowly letting myself step into this season, honestly. I didn't even post yesterday. Oh, but it's one of those situations to where stepping into this year, my word of last astrological year was legacy. You know, and I think that was a really big part to me putting forward what we have right here. Ironically, with my midheaven and earth, of like just building up and making sure that we have like a good spot to come to communicate, break all this down, getting the proper tools, resources, and etc. So I appreciate each and every one of y'all who have supported me to bring that in my last astrological year. Although it was really hard, I have been able to make my world around the fact that this is what I do. And so I appreciate y'all for helping me bring that into reality each and every time I go live or do something else. It's truly an honor. And I think my word for this year is going to be like either purpose or intention. I haven't stuck with which one yet, but I really want to be more intentional and purposeful about the things that I do put out to y'all and when I put them out to everybody. Like, for example, right now it's Aries season. People are starting to slowly get back into their active roles of things. So why not explain to y'all how to become the main character of your own life through these energies, through these North Node. This is eclipse season that's coming through, which is going to be asking a lot of us to tap into our destiny, as we mentioned with that North Node video that I did. But the midheaven is like, I guess, the easier way, in my personal opinion, for you to see where you could take your success in your career, in your content creation, or your art. This is really the energy signature of that. So I will say this though, the midheaven is one side to this. I need to explain to you briefly the IC, right? Now, midheaven do all the elements, so y'all get an understanding. Oh, that's where I have to shoot out for. That's where I'm aiming for. That's the highest point, right? Now on the other side is the IC. And so the IC gets a little bit more complicated in a certain sense. The reason why is because when you talk about the IC, it's called the Imum Coeli. And I could be wrong about that. Technically, the MC is the Medium Coeli. I don't want to pronounce the stuff wrong. I hate pronouncing stuff wrong. But getting into this other part, the IC really represents where you're coming from as a soul, where you're coming from as far as your family origin, your roots, your DNA, ancestral karma. There's just all the inter mechanisms of your emotional world is coming from your IC. It's typically going to be representative of your fourth house, which is the house of family, the house of the mother, etc. Right? Now, if you have your IC, well, I'll put it like this. Your MC is in whatever sign it's in. The exact opposite sign is where your IC is. And so the IC, the way I like to look at it, at least, is that this is where you find the most comfort in your world. And so a lot of the times there's themes that come through with your IC, which I'll break each down when it comes to the individual signs, right? And with that IC, it's like, this is what you have to lean on to find comfort. This is what you have to lean on to find emotional security. This is the energy signature that you kind of need to tap into to decompress from all of the other parts to you pushing forward that MC. This is really like this counterbalance between work and rest, between like the nature of I gotta go get ahead and get it, and the nurture of I need to also recoup. And that's why I want to kind of give you this context, because you knowing your IC gives you an understanding of what's going to help make you comfortable. Now, granted, the moon is also going to do that as well. But the IC is like, where do you get to that restorative part? Where do you find that like next layer as to how you gain that sense of calm and that rest, right? So mind you, just as I explained the midheaven, there's, and in most things astrology, if not all things astrology, there's always the opposite side. So when you're so caught up in doing your midheaven, you might forget, yo, I need to recharge. Yo, I need to step back. Yo, I need a minute to myself. And the IC is going to show you the energy signature of how that works. I'll write about it a little bit deeper in my ebook that I put out. But as I go through each of the signs, we're going to, this is how it's going to teeter-totter. So I wanted to explain that before I do hop into the signs. Are people buying stuff? People are buying, they're subscribing. They're subscribing to my newsletter. They're buying readings. What am I doing? So many things, so many people. You guys are so kind. Thank you. No, but for real, let's get it. All right. My hair looks great. I appreciate you. I've been doing my best. It's been growing since the world shut down. And so I think it's a symbolic part to, hey, this is the growth of how far we've all came since that has happened. So the more you know. Anyway, let's go. Such good info. We got some fire signs, very big energy, feels refreshing. Oh, this sounds beautiful. Y'all sound beautiful. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to go through all of the midheavens. So drop your midheaven down in the chat. If you haven't, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe if you haven't. If y'all are new here, say what's up. If y'all want to know more, subscribe to the newsletter. And if you want to get the whole scoop on what your midheaven is and actually every single part of your chart, bar for bar, word for word, feeling for feeling, and vibe for vibe, make sure that you book a reading with me for this upcoming time frame, especially before Mercury retrograde hits and every other eclipse is coming through. Because I think that'll probably help. This is just my professional opinion. That's all. So let's go. You the big spiritual consultant. Every time you see Brand, that's my homie from college, so he gonna keep talking. That's my guy though. All right, let's keep it. It's been a long way, brother, as we can see. All right, let's get it going. So, starting off with the Midheaven and Aries, right? Speaking of that Midheaven and fire, all right. Midheaven and Aries, the main part to your main character energy is, are you willing to step up to the challenge? There's something about a Midheaven and Aries being challenged that fully brings out the rest of their potential. There's a certain need for a push of some sort. If they don't feel like they're being challenged in what they do, they're not going to like it. There's something when it comes to the Midheaven and Aries, that Midheaven and fire, that needs a push and a push back in order for them to know how far that they can go, or in order for them to know how much they have to put their energy into something. The biggest portion to this, however, is making sure that they can stand in the power of being themselves. A Midheaven and Aries is the last person you want to tell who they are if you don't know who they are. And so the principal portion to this is that main character energy is that you are a unique individual. However, you are unique based off of the multiplicity that you represent as a Midheaven and Aries. So you could be into a lot of different things. You don't have to let one thing define you as far as how that energy goes. But as a Midheaven and Aries, you kind of treat the world as a sport. You treat a lot of situations to where it's like, hey, I'm not trying to necessarily be better than you, but I'm trying to be the best me that I can be. And this kind of creates this certain form of healthy competition when done properly, to where you might be like, hey, you might have been doing this for 20 years longer than me, but I'm right behind you. I'm doing my thing, right? There's this certain form of go-getter and hustle that the go watch my North Node video after this. The Midheaven and Aries has in this regard. Now, to get into this other portion in terms of that Midheaven and Aries, I want to talk about the IC, the other side of this. The other side of this is basically being in the situation to where, you find comfort though in relationships. When it comes to having a Midheaven in Aries, there's a comfort in compromise. Although when it comes to work, you might be the person who's like, I'm super hyper independent. I'm doing my own thing the whole time. Y'all can't stop me, leave me alone. But when it comes to your comfort, you're the person who wants to be in a relationship. You're the person who wants to come home to somebody and like, oh, thank you for this. And like, where you might be very tough in terms of work, or like you might be very loud and extra in terms of the output that you have. On the other flip end, you really just want to be like comfortable. You want to go on little dates. You want to have a little quiet time. You might even be like really peaceful. This is the type of person who wants to sit somewhere in like a Zen garden with the person they love. And this is going to be really contradicting to people, because the person at work is like, you're always out here yelling at us, pushing us to go further, and telling us that we need to be better at our jobs, whether like conscious consciously or unconsciously, like you are the force that does that. And so they're like, why are you all chilling out? And that's the difference, is that when you pushing forward all of that extra independence, the other portion is like, you want to have that relationship. You want to have a person to lean on with that, and let them share those struggles with you as well. And then you're going to teach them ways on how to bring in their own independence. So this is kind of the way that ends up bridging out. But again, to kind of get back to that Midheaven Aries portion one more time, this is really about you choosing to push forward the strength of your own heart and allowing the relationship portions and the relationship constructs bring you into your sense of peace. Because sometimes you need someone else to take you out of just you pushing yourself out there so hard, and then gain a sense of peace and semblance. That's really what the vibe is for that. So I hope that helps for all the people that have Midheaven and Aries out here. You know what I'm saying? It's the balance, the duality. Work-wise, always independent, but relationships, love me some loyal and deep relationships. Thank you for sharing that, Patsy, because that's really showing the dichotomy between like, oh, I'm out here, I'm doing it, everything else. I just want to be laid up at home with the person I love. That's all I really want to do. I just want to hang out with like a few people that I really enjoy and like call it a day. Like that's the icy, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yo, you mad tough. Oh, you're a softie. Like that's kind of the dichotomy there. But it is about you continuously pushing out your inner truth and fervor to keep things rolling. But yeah, I was literally looking into this astrology. How did you know? It's the same way I know when I put out memes that they're going to hit different. The same way that I know about your birth chart when you open it up and I tell you the fullness of your whole existence in an hour or an hour and a half. Astrology. Nah, but genuinely speaking, like that is really the part to it. As much as I am a creative, as much as I am like an artist, I really am an astrologer at most in my heart of hearts. So I really try to bring in the most of what the stars got to say into my day to day and when I break stuff down. So I appreciate that the Midheaven class is finding you at a perfect time, because this is really what it's about. All right. True. We are like day and night, but it's harmony and balance we seek. And that right there is the Midheaven and Aries. I appreciate y'all for putting in some input as well. Really using your Midheaven and Aries and letting me know straight up as we're doing this, right? They're like, yo, Midheaven and Aries. Y'all see me? This is what we do. Yeah, y'all see that? This is how that works. You feel me? All right, let's get to the next one, right? So if you have your Midheaven in Taurus, you have your Midheaven in Earth as well. Now, your career, success, fame, money, the whole nine, all of that for you is going to be coming in slowly. There is a slow grind in terms to the Midheaven of Taurus. And it's really opposite to the world that we've been living in as far as like social media and that output. Then if you're someone that had a Midheaven of Taurus and social media is a turnoff to you in general, it's because your concept of gaining assets is a much slower process. Not slower meaning dull or anything else like that, but it is a slower process. Why is that the case? Because people may be putting in larger investments into you while you work on that thing over time. Now, mind you, I mentioned Midheaven Earth earlier, and it's about building up a large part of, hey, this is what I have to show for. Now, with that being said, a North Node of Taurus, Midheaven. See, I'm in my bag, so I'm still talking about the Midheaven, but hey, go watch that other video. But the Midheaven of Taurus, right? This is really going to be putting you into the perspective of not just slow and steady wins the race, which is the biggest Taurus trope ever, but it's also in terms of allowing yourself to stop and smell the roses. And I think that's really what I'm trying to get at, is that you might put in a large sum of effort for like 4 hours in a day. And if that's the only 4 hours you have, cool off. Do it again the next day, because you using the most of your energy bit by bit is going to bring you way more results than you forcing yourself to do something past the point of the energy that you have for that time frame. So with that being said, how does the Midheaven and Taurus really find their peace? How do they find their comfort? Like, oh my God, I have to do this stuff and it's going to take so slow. How do I find my comfort? Well, that means your IC is going to be in Scorpio. And so having your IC in Scorpio, how are you finding comfort? In the taboo. You're going to find comfort in spirituality. You're going to find comfort in crystals. You're going to find comfort in yoga and things that most people are like, oh, that's not even this. Like there's a certain bridging in of the deep sense of like honestly the occult or like anything that has to do with like cards, etc. that a Midheaven and Taurus is going to be interested in because it's on the other side of what's going on. You get what I'm saying? Just wanted to say hi and thank you in advance. Shout out to Art. Nah, I appreciate you, bro. Whenever it's time for you, you gonna pull through and see this. So I appreciate you just popping up for the love, for real. Thank you. Keep it going, keep it rocking, and stay safe. Much love to you, brother. We get into the other part. To South Node I'm still on the North Node, South Node, as we can see. But the IC in Scorpio is going to be really geared to you, making sure that you can feel the depths of what's going on. So the reason why this is such an interesting dichotomy between Taurus as well as Scorpio is because they're both interested in the riches of things. The North Node the Midheaven in Taurus is interested in the riches of things on the outside, whereas the IC is about the riches of the inner parts of people's worlds. So in order for you to really find that certain sense of comfort, you need to have intimate connections with other people that are around you. And that doesn't necessarily have to be just y'all getting buck nasty with it. It could also really just mean like, hey, this is a person who I can tell that I'm having a terrible day and I know that they're going to keep that to themselves. Yo, this is a person that I know that I'm going to like really invest my time into and they're really going to hold the space for me. That's what a Midheaven and Taurus needs because because that is essentially what they're pushing forward. They basically need someone to dig in deep with as they grow the other part so they don't get too stressed about what they're growing and how fast it's going. But I promise you, if you could get rid of that, I got to do this now thing, Midheaven and Taurus, you get so much bread. It's crazy. So good for y'all. Hey, people are paying me money again. Why? So much money. Thank you. Money. Anyway, for those who are just popping in, I told somebody like 2 classes ago that every time someone pays me or like sends me a reading while I'm live, I'm just going to like cry and thank them in the process because it'd be real like that. So thank you. Such a gem. Wish you a great future in this field. Thank you so much, Sophia. For real. I appreciate you. All right, we got a first super on this live stream. Let's go. Thank you. All right, let's get to the Midheaven. Gotta say it 3 times. Midheaven and Gemini for our 3rd Midheaven sign, right? So having a Midheaven and Gemini, I'm gonna let you know right now, your notoriety is going like the way that a lot of people gear Gemini suns and they talk about Gemini suns. People that have Midheaven and Gemini, y'all get it so much worse. Why? Because y'all have to figure out what the truth is. And we live in a world full of lies. So if you sitting there and you hear somebody saying something that's off, you're like, hey, that doesn't sound right. You get when you have a Midheaven and Gemini, you are going to be not the whistleblower, but you're going to be the person who's like, hey, they're lying about that news story. I was there. And everyone's like, oh, right. Midheaven and Gemini, I saw something earlier and it was about this woman who ended up going to school with J-Lo in high school. And so she talks about stuff. She's like, yeah, back in the day, you know, I was Jenny from the block. I was running around, running stupid, doing my thing, being hot, booty on bootylicious. I'm so fine. She's still fine to this day. Not the point. What I am saying, though, is that basically she was like, you are not doing that. And she's like, I've waited so long to explain this, but like, you are not doing that. You'll keep using our culture. We don't even like you. And it was like, whoa. Now, is that true or not? We don't know. Can we fully even confirm it? Not necessarily. However, if that person did have Midheaven and Gemini, they brought up such a controversial thought piece that you have to kind of sit there and be like, this is true. That might not be true. These things could be true. But what the Midheaven and Gemini wants you to do is force you to think, right? And so you might be someone who is bringing up controversial thoughts and opinions. And then we're like, oh, shoot, now we have to think about things that we thought were super concrete in our culture, in our society. Now, mind you, when you're someone who is really geared on ready to say the right, wrong thing, right? Or ready to kind of like rebel with no cause, excuse me. The IC portion of your energy is going to be Sagittarius, right? Having a Sagittarius IC means that you're going to find your comfort in learning and exploration and travel. You might feel more comfortable traveling than you'll ever feel at home. You might be more comfortable around different culture than you were born into. There's a certain format as far as having your IC in Sagittarius where you're going to be really trying to find the truth behind all matters of things. And sometimes in order for you to find that truth, you're pulling up. Edward Snowden probably had their midheaven in Gemini. And honestly, that's probably the case. Like there's a certain part to, even when I think about Gemini, one of the best examples of Gemini is Tupac Shakur. Because if you look at Tupac, like he was definitely on his thug life to his like, I love women and flowers and poetry. And both of those things were simultaneously true. And so there's a certain amount of the duality of things that comes through with having your midheaven in Gemini. And that's what you're really here to help represent, that there is a duality to things and that there is this one side, there's this other side. And then right in the middle is the truth. And the midheaven in Gemini is willing to talk about all of that to get the ball rolling. Okay, facts. This is exactly what I imagined for Sag IC. Thank you. Definitely sounds like Sag says a Sag coming from a Sag. Sag holery. Let's get it. We out here. Anyway, let's get to the next part. Cool. All right, let's get to Midheaven and Cancer. Appreciate y'all for still rocking with me as well. I know a lot of y'all still waiting for this, but we have 67 people in here right now. That's beautiful. I love that. Make sure everybody hit the like button though. I don't see if we gotta see the likes that match up to everything. We gotta, YouTube gotta know that y'all having a good time, because then I can make more stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's just how it works. All right. So Midheaven and Cancer. Midheaven and Cancer is one of those midheavens, right? To where the career success, fame that you might be looking for isn't even particularly in the world at large. It might be in you bridging and building your own family, or your own feeling of family, or your own tribe, so to speak, right? Having a midheaven in Cancer makes you the matriarch or the emotional king, so to speak, in breaking down the energies that are around you in a way that everyone around gets a certain sense of comfort, understanding, and to be able to tap into their general intuition, right? Midheaven and Cancer are very psychic people, but they're psychic in a way where they're like, what makes people comfortable and what makes people uncomfortable. And so they kind of dedicate a large part of their world to making things in the house aesthetically right. They're really into the concept of making things like they would rather have the best home on the entire block than like be famous, so to speak. There's a certain form of like the midheaven in Cancer to where I just imagine someone with like that billionaire mansion, but that they don't even try to go in, like they just have other people go type deal. Oh shoot, he looked up Snowden, his midheaven was in Gemini. Let's go. Let's get it. That's what I'm saying, bro. It's the astrology be astrology. You know what I'm saying? Just came in the room right on time. What's up? But yeah, so when it gets to that Cancer midheaven one more time, this really gets to the portion of having to utilize your emotions in order for people to come to you with their real feelings. I think that there's something with the midheaven and Cancer to where it's like you really want to know the depths of everyone's feeling. These people make great therapists. These people make great, not necessarily mediators, but they really want to just hear where people are coming from and how they're feeling. They have such a better knack of like how people are emoting than most people do. Now, how does this work out on the flip end? That means their IC is in Capricorn, meaning in wherever they came up, they might have come up from a super strict household, right? Super strict household. Hey, y'all can't go out after this time. Hey, you can't go hang out with your friends. Hey, did you end up doing like your taxes early? Hey, did you end up doing everything else? Like there's this certain amount of like, as much as they may have been struggled or restrained by the rules as a whole, they're also find solace in the fact that there is rules and that there are certain ways to go about things that are geared in. What do I mean by this? Basically, with Capricorn IC, you kind of want a certain set of like regulations and structure, but you don't want to make that structure. You want to like abide by the structure. You want to tap into the structure. So sometimes it's really hard for people that have Midheaven and Cancer to break away from tradition, because their goal is to make their own traditions. And it's through their own traditions that they make where it's like, hey, I throw the best Christmas at my house. And all the family and all the closest friends come through for that Christmas. And in the one time that they don't run Christmas, everybody goes to someone else's and they have a bad time. You get what I'm saying? Midheaven and Cancer, it knows how to be like a connoisseur of the vibes that are at hand. And that's really where that steps in. So I hope that helps everybody that has a Midheaven and Cancer. A lot of your fame success is like through comfort. And also, let's say you are someone who's like, I want to be a content creator, but I'm a Midheaven and Cancer. Is it just about my house? Literally make a whole entire TikTok or whatever you want to make about cooking or something that has to do with the Cancer related thing. Or if you have like a kid and you're like, here's how to be a mom blogger. Like, I'm telling you, it will pop off. Like, it's just, that's just kind of how it works. Just keep in mind the energy signatures that I talk about it, and they're just going to fill out the rest for how that works with you. Okay. How does it work when Chiron conjuncts your midheaven? Yours is in Leo. I'm going to break that down really briefly just because it's an interesting question. If you haven't watched my Chiron class, please watch that as well and watch this. But if you have Chiron on your midheaven, this means that like you're really geared to like be a healer in terms of that energy. So I'm about to talk about Leo right now anyway for everybody else. But you doubly pay attention to that and check out my Chiron one in that process, because that's a real specific thing, and I want to make sure that gets addressed. So hopping right back in, right? So let's get to the Midheaven in Leo. So if you have a Midheaven in Leo, you are born to be the star. And I think most people that have Midheaven in Leo are somehow afraid of that. And it's weird because you might be put as the star of the show. You might be put as the person who they want to be the boss. Every person inside of the function might be like, hey, yo, this is the most talented person in the room. But the minute that someone with Midheaven and Leo gets called out for that, they're like, oh, I have to act as something other than myself. And that is the last thing that you're supposed to do as a Midheaven and Leo. Because remember, when I was talking about the Midheaven and fire, it's the more of yourself you can emulate and tap through. That's how that ends up pulling through. You just asked about Cancer Midheaven. If you put back the video about like 5-10 minutes or so, I just explained the Cancer Midheaven just to let you know. But yeah, so getting into the idea and the notion again of that Midheaven and Leo, like you are talented. You're stupid talented. You want to have a Midheaven and Leo. You might even have a certain talent that other people around you in your field cannot do the same way. Now, why is this important? Well, on the flip end, what does make the Leo midheaven comfortable? What makes a Leo midheaven comfortable is being in places and spaces where they're not the primary person that's going on. Like you might end up, I'm going to use this example. Coming up in your smaller town, let's say you were born in a smaller town, you could be the literal like, oh, that's them. Oh my God. Like you have your Midheaven and Leo. Like we all love you. And in your hometown, you could be like the coolest person of 1,000 people. What's going to make you comfortable as a Midheaven and Leo is when you go to a city and all of a sudden you went from the most important thing to like, nobody knows me. You're like, oh my God, nobody knows me. I'm free. I could just be a person. I can watch everyone else be weird. Everyone else is doing something else. Not everyone's focused on me. Oh my God. Like there's a certain sense of like, hey, not everyone's pushing this on me. Now, granted, on the flip end, you being a Midheaven and Leo is like when it is time for you to step into that prowess, you're supposed to roar. You get what I'm saying? you would be so surprised as a Midheaven Leo, you getting on stage to improv that thing that everyone else was scared to do would literally take a show that was to everyone else on the cast being like, we are now reinvigorated to be the best that we can be. Like, I'm so serious. Like, there's a certain amount of like camaraderie that having a Midheaven and Leo like allows you to have. And it is because you really understand everybody else. You get what I'm saying? Like, you're not just understanding the Netflix and the characters and the actors on Netflix. You're like, hey, what about the audience watching it? That's something that the Midheaven and Leo has a really keen understanding on. So if you know what the people want, why are you not giving the people what they want? You feel me? Let me see. I know a couple. I see a couple people up here. Is it possible to have your midheaven in 2 signs? No, but you probably have other energies there. So wherever your midheaven is, there's only one spot of your midheaven. But the way I explain stuff in general, if it starts to resonate to that, just keep in mind that that could be resonant to you, but watch the rest of your chart in that process as well, because that will make a difference. Let's see. Someone said give him time. I don't know what you're saying, give me time for, but I feel you though. Like a volcano dormant, you're great sight to see. Thanks, man. Anyway, but that's pretty much the idea of the midheaven in Leo in general. But you're supposed to shine. You're supposed to show up as yourself, and you're supposed to let yourself be the main character of the show. Ironically, when we're talking about the main character energy of your birth chart. So that's how you rise up, is like by taking the reins of what you know and pushing that forward. So let's keep it moving. Appreciate y'all. So I'm excited. I appreciate y'all being here. Okay. Next, we got the midheaven in Virgo, right? So the midheaven in Virgo, I have to say that when it comes to your success, when it comes to what it is that you really want to do in this world, is that you are here to provide a service. And the service that you provide has to do with the kind-hearted nature that most midheaven and Virgos have. Why is that? Because the midheaven and Virgo wants to fill into whatever place that they can be the most useful or the most helpful. And you can have so much talent in one area, but you're going to be the person who want to also get out of your comfort zone to help the other. You're going to want to be in positions to where you can quite literally assist somebody on becoming a greater version of themselves. By seeing the details in between things that other people aren't looking at, you are a cut above the rest in terms of the scientific almost capability of your mind itself. Now, mind you, having a midheaven in Virgo, you might need to take your time in a way that's event-based, right? I would say with Taurus, it's like you're kind of just bridging stuff up. You're kind of just like building over time. With Virgo, you're finding each situation and event that pops up amongst your world, and then you are kind of activating yourself piece by piece. So maybe one day they need your help at a soup kitchen. Boom, you go to that super kitchen, you help everybody else. Oh, everyone had a great time, right? You might have learned something in helping those people out at the soup kitchen that literally helps you with a pace of something at your job. Like when it comes to having that midheaven in Virgo, a lot of your skills are transferable directly because you're just learning what needs to be done in between things, right? So you can literally find, I had a hair on me, I'm a whore. Anyway, but you can literally find the general like in-betweens and concepts of what's going on in your world in a way that other people can't see. Why can't they see it the same way as you? Because your IC is in Pisces. That I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it works, you know what I'm saying? But having the IC in Pisces, your comfortability as a midheaven in Virgo is through the arts, is through emotion, is through love, is through like all of these like non-tangible factors. And it's like when you're able to tap into that spiritual, non-tangible, love, emotions, unconditional love, you're able to actually gear yourself into action in real life. And so this is why it's such an interesting dichotomy, because on one side you have the midheaven and you're like, yo, I'm here to save the world. And on the other side, you're like, I don't want to save the world. I just want to love everyone. And like, there's a certain, there's a certain dichotomy that ends up popping up with that. But the main portion is you're going to find a lot of comfort in that icy Pisces. And that icy Pisces, we see we out here rapping by accident. It's lit. Nah, but for real, you're really getting into this new position of that emotion in order for you to actually gear yourself to do the proper thing. This also reminds me a lot of like how like those nurses who just kind of know what's going on with people and they show up and they're like, oh yeah, like I knew that they were dealing with this, but like here's this pudding that I knew was going to be their favorite. Like they just have this instinctual knowing of what people actually need beyond their own words. And that's really what the Midheaven in Virgo is good at doing. They're problem solvers by nature. They are problem solvers. And so whenever you are solving a problem, people are going to be like, oh my God, you just solved the problem. And if they're not, they need to literally thank you a lot, because that's a really powerful thing to have. Okay. You're live. You're a great, wise person, Chad. Thanks. I could heart these. Thank you. Showing love. Hold on. Got Sophia too. Bang. I could send hearts back. I could send love when people send me money. That is amazing. Nah, but for real, I appreciate you so much, you know. Noticing a hair on him as he talks about Virgo. Yes. That is 100% true. Yeah, I'm so glad y'all are all here live. This is super dope. I'm going live again on Saturday to talk about the lunar eclipse in Libra. But before that, let's talk about the Midheaven in Libra and how that works. I saw a couple people in here had that, so I want to make sure to do its due diligence, right? We are halfway through the zodiac, by the way, just to let y'all know. Now, second half, let's get to the Midheaven in Libra, right? So having your Midheaven in Libra, I have to say this. Your concept in relationship to the social currency is way higher than everybody else's. It does remind me of, like, I live in LA. I don't live in content creator LA track much at all, but there are a lot of people who are in that track. And to kind of give you context based off of what I know and understand, there's just a lot of people who are there to kind of just rub shoulders to get a little bit higher on the social ladder, or the perceived social ladder. So having your midheaven in, what's it called? It's having your midheaven in Libra in general, right? Because someone just asked about theirs, but I wanted to break it down in general just to make sure everyone gets their piece of things, right? This is you knowing your value and also knowing the value of being around other people. So you can low-key, like if you're working somewhere, just based off the relationships and friendships you have, you could start off literally sweeping the floor somewhere. You can befriend one of the CEOs, and just off of that relationship, they'll be like, yo, everybody out here hasn't been working hard. This might sound weird, but I want to vouch for them because they've been working hard to make sure all the floors have been spotless. And I think that they would do a great job doing something else. But you see how like your relationship and just your understanding of that social construct has been able to like have you step in and then just like hop up to that next part, right? That's kind of this concept with that midheaven in Libra. Relationships are going to be your bag. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a handful of people who maybe are dating or married to like really prolific people that have their midheaven in Libra. Why? Because they were able to gain status through a relationship, through their marriage, through whoever who was screwing who. Like there's this concept where it's geared on the charm, the understanding, the finesse of knowing how this social nuance goes. These people are going to be social butterflies by nature as well. And if they're not social butterflies, they at least know each person in the room and they know what they do and they know who's screwing who. And that's part of their social currency. So let's get to the other side to this, where if you have your midheaven in Libra, you have your IC in Aries. So you might have come up from a family that was super competitive, or there was a lot of like, I'm gonna be super just transparent. There could have been even some like parts of violence or like there was just a certain amount of like unchecked aggressiveness that wasn't able to be addressed well, especially in the younger years. And so even in terms of finding your peace, a lot of times you might just really have to be by yourself. Someone that has a IC in Aries, like you really might just need to take a for real day to yourself. Like no phone, no nothing, not hitting up nobody, letting a couple people know like, hey yo, I'm about to be out, leave me alone. You might need to spend a day sitting by a river and just call it a day. Like you might need to spend, a lot of time to yourself. Now, this isn't to make you isolate. This isn't to keep you isolated. But there's so much social idea with someone that has a midheaven in Libra that they need to get out of their own way. And the getting out of their own way in that social part is for them to walk away. And here's my other thing for you to notice, Midheaven and Libra. When you do step away from something, pay attention to who reaches out to you. It's really important. When you step away from something, pay attention to who reaches out to you, because those are going to be the true partners who are really concerned about what was going on with that. And those are the people that you should invest more of your time into, because that's what's going to be bringing up that social nuance and that social finesse that you guys have. Also, you're just pretty, so just keep being pretty. That's the other side to Libra, so more power to you. I have a Libra MC2. Let's go. Beautiful Libra energy. I know all the things about people because they tell me, yo, I'm saying. So that's the other part to having that Libra dichotomy, is that it's like they're going to tell you why, because they're like, oh, this person has a social vibe. This person has a certain amount of like oomph to them. This person's charming and cool. Let me just tell them about myself. And it's like, oh yeah, let's get this. Telling you, trust. And people will always show you who they are. So the other side note for people that have Midheaven and Libra, they will always show you who you are. So you have to decide where people are actually at in terms of how you're interacting with them. Hope that helps. So, all right, so we got to the Libra part. Let's move a little forward. We've been live for an hour so far. Let's go. All right, so let's get to the next side. Let's get to the next portion to this. The next thing that I want to mention to you is going to be about the Midheaven in Scorpio. Now, the Midheaven in Scorpio is an interesting one, because the Midheaven in Scorpio has everything to do with the undercurrent of things. People that have Midheaven in Scorpio are typically psychic. Not everyone's psychic to a certain degree, of course, but I think Scorpio Midheavens are so invested in that undercurrent that they'll go to whatever means that they have to in order to either discover it or to know that it's there, right? So for example, if you have a Midheaven in Scorpio and you just heard someone was promiscuous, your brain is going to be like, well, what did they do? Like what makes them so infamous? Like, what did they do? Like, what really happened in their world, or like what really went on? And you'll just like kind of like, well, look at them, be like, I wonder what this is, or like, I wonder what's going on. And of course, I'm using this as an example, but there's the idea about the Midheaven in Scorpio where you have to like really sleuth what's going on. You have to sleuth like what someone is made of in a lot of cases. And so with that, your intensity and understanding of not just that mystery, but also your dedication to like intimacy, lust, and etc. This is one of those things where you're like really able to dive into the truth behind things. When it comes to having Midheaven in Scorpio, I'm gonna be super real, yo. You might screw your way to power, respectfully so. Like, you might be able to be like, I know how to get this out of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might be like, like, what's up with you? Like, there's a something with Midheaven and Scorpio where like they understand their magnetism, and because they understand their magnetism, they can like literally pop up and screw their way to victory. Just be honest, it's kind of how that works, right? Now, how does that work on the flip end? That means that you have your IC in Taurus. So having your IC in Taurus, what that ends up breaking down into, right, is that you're going to find comfort in tangible things. You're going to find comfort in food. You're going to find comfort in things that kind of stay stable. Because the Midheaven in Scorpio, you're always reinventing what it means for you to find success, whether that success be like, hey, I have all the riches in the world, or whether your success is like, hey, I have a certain like social power and nuance now. There's a certain part to that that has a lot to do with sex appeal, so to speak. Now I see the Taurus is like, this is the tangible things. It's about you really need people that want to take things slower than you around you. This is like people who want to see your growth over a larger portion of time. You need people who are going to be committed to who you are as a person, no matter how you might fluctuate that day. It's like the people that are ride or dies are going to be those that you find comfort in, but you're only going to really find comfort in people who are ride or dies, where they're like, hey, like, yeah, I know you were into music the other day and then you were into this the other day, but guess what? Like, I just like you for you. I like you because of who you are as a person. That's going to send a Scorpio midheaven over the moon. And then they're going to use all their sleuthing power to make sure that that person is okay. See how all this works? But that's going to be like my quick breakdown, at least on the midheaven of Scorpio, how that works as well with the IC. Hope I'm keeping you all with me. I know we got 4 more to go. If I have already explained yours and you've gotten something out of this, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure that you pull up for the ebook. Make sure you pull up for a reading, because I do have my readings to get through as far as this upcoming eclipse season. And I want to make sure that nobody feels like they're going into that blind. So here's a couple things that I think could help you in that process. So tap into your midheaven, tap into your north node this eclipse, and I promise you're going to have a great start to this astrological new year. Okay. Someone asked if their MC in Scorpio affects the chart was conjunct Pluto. May remain sexual? It can either show up as you being like really promiscuous, or it can be the stark opposite of like, I'm only going to like let this go for someone who really can honor the fullness of my energy and potential. So it kind of plays out in both of those ways, where it's either like it's hyper, oh, let's get it popping, or it's the other side where it's like, I know I can get it popping, but you are not good enough for me. You do not have the energy. You cannot match my energy in my chi. So why would I give this to you? That's kind of like that part. And I'm not doing that to be any type of way. I just felt like making up an accent for that, to be honest. Okay, cool. All right, let's go. I get you, bro. I'm getting over there. You know I'm getting there. I got you. All right, so for people that do have a Sag midheaven, let's get it popping. If you have a Sagittarius midheaven, your success has a lot to do with how intelligent you are. You're gonna have this skill for world building and understanding how like larger aspects of things work than other people. So you, as a midheaven and Sag, you could literally know how all the governments work, but you're seeing why they work the way that they are versus being caught up as to what that means for everyone else. You're like, oh, well, this person's in this position because of this. Like, you kind of are able to see the truth in a way that other people don't see the truth. Or like, if someone's like, hey, like having a midheaven and Sag is them being like, oh my God, guess what? They just dropped the price on gas for the first time in such a long time. Gas is now $2 everywhere. Oh my God, isn't that great? And you tell that to a midheaven and Sag, and they're gonna be like, yeah, but have you checked the price on groceries? Have you looked at how much it costs to get a car? Have you looked at like they're like the midheaven and Sag will like be like, yo, this is the other thing that you were missing. And so sometimes people will get pissed because they're like, you're being negative, and the midheaven and Sag is like, no, I just saw the thing that you didn't see, which was a part of this thing, right? Now, how do I know that the midheaven and Sag is going to be well read or well understood when I break these things down? Because they have their IC in Gemini. So what does a midheaven in Sagittarius do to gain their own personal peace? They literally, they are out there with the birds. And what I mean by that is that like, for someone with midheaven in Scorpio is going to eat up TikToks, reels, just short information. They are the Snapple facts of the zodiac. They are like, I'm taking all these little bits and pieces and I'm going to form my own philosophy. And once that philosophy is formed, people are going to love me for my philosophy on life. And that's literally how it works. If you have midheaven and Sag, you can literally make a career off of your vision of the world and your philosophy on life. I'm so serious. Like y'all are like y'all are like the TED Talks meets money. You know what I mean? Like it's like, hey, here's my TED Talk about this, and you'll break something down so well. And then by the end of it, they'll be like, so what did you mean by that thing? You're like, yeah, I don't know. I was just telling you my moving philosophy, and you ended up liking it, and I'm so glad that you did. That's Midheaven and Sag. Y'all are able to like really just kind of like make up stuff. Birds aren't real. Yes, I know. I feel you though. Did you do Virgo already? Yes, I did do Virgo already. Next time I'm gonna get here on time. I got Saturday. On Saturday we're gonna do that. And I appreciate y'all who be like low key stressed about getting here live. Like I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been going live for so long. I just like my brain just never anticipates people being here. So the fact that there's like 80 people in here right now, it's crazy to me. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all endlessly. But it's just like, oh wow, people like this, you know? It's good stuff. Good stuff. As a Sag, philosophy is too much work. It's not about, so I'm gonna mention one thing about Midheaven and Sag one more time. It's not about everyone else's philosophy. It's what your philosophy is. It's what your philosophy ends up being is what pushes you forward, not everyone else's. So literally as a Midheaven and Sag, you might disrespect other philosophies just because that's part of your philosophy to do. You get what I'm saying? It becomes more adaptable, so to speak, to what you're aiming for. So I hope that helps a little bit. Hey, Soul Fam Love, shout out. We out here. Low key just love learning and then forgetting that I learned it and bring it up randomly in convos. Yes, you do that. But this is like the dichotomy of that Midheaven and Sag. So I hope that helps for everybody who has it or tapped in. I know I'm missing some things in between, but I do want to make sure that I get to everyone so I don't get out. You know, we in the pocket here, you know. Next, let's get to the Midheaven and Capricorn. So when it gets to Midheaven and Capricorn, you're going to be someone who has to like big body your dreams. Like there's one of those things when you have a Midheaven and Capricorn to where it's like you're always kind of feeling like you're expected to go a mile and beyond that. And when everyone else stops working, you kind of keep working. And when people are like, I'm going about my day, you keep thinking about work. When you're like, oh yeah, you know, I'm just here chilling. And you're like, but what does this mean for my legacy? Like, what does this mean for the greater part of the world? Like, how am I making my impact on the world? Like, there's always this like need to go higher, this need to push beyond the limits that have already been there, right? If you see someone doing something that you've never seen before, you're going to want to tap in and also kind of like make your own lane or make your own way. Now, the thing with Midheaven and Capricorn is that they're extremely ambitious by nature, right? Extremely ambitious, but yes, they do need this structure. And most importantly, when a Midheaven and Capricorn creates a structure or creates a system that starts to work for them, and they work that system over a point of time, that's when things actually grow into their favor. When you have Midheaven and Capricorn, the more that you can slowly get the business side of things in order, the easier the rest of the lane is. Like the more work you could put in to make yourself feel like, yo, I'm a professional at this, is when everyone else starts looking at you as a professional, right? Cap energies are always working and always thinking. Facts. So with the Midheaven and Capricorn, with all this potential for you to become the GOAT, for you to become the best, right? Where do they find their comfort? The other flip side in IC and Cancer is that you're going to find comfort in the people that you deem family, not particularly just like your actual blood relatives. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there has to be people that you consider your family. Your chosen family as a Midheaven and Capricorn are going to be the most important people to you. Why? Because you have the emotional connection to them that you might not have to all the other people. And so it's for people that you relate to, that love you on a core level, to where no matter how far you take your tangible success, they still love you the same, no matter if you rich or poor. Those are the people that are going to be what brings that IC and Cancer piece, right? There's going to be people that they have to relate to on an emotive level, on a psychic level, on an intuitive level. And that's what's going to be pushing that forward more. So if you do have this IC in Cancer, make sure that you take time to yourself to like sit in that stillness, to take time to just like do your best to not do do the most all the time, because the thing with having a midheaven in Capricorn is that like your success is imminent, but it's only when you master the fact that you can't push time forward faster than it moves that you kind of find the purity of your success. Hope that that sticks out for one of y'all. I know that that was coming from a real spot, so I hope that that clicks with y'all who do have the midheaven in Capricorn. So let's move a little bit further. We got two more coming up, and yeah, let's break this down. 75 watching, and we have hit 75 minutes. We love to see it. You get what I'm saying? That's beautiful. All right, so let's get to the next part right now, and the next part is going to be a breakdown of Aquarius as well as Pisces, right? So having your midheaven in Aquarius, start here. Midheaven in Aquarius, you are literally meant to like bring the squad together. You're supposed to like kind of bring the tribe together, right? I literally think of midheaven in Aquarius, and I immediately think about all the people who got success on like Vine, you know, or the people who got success on like TikTok. You get what I mean? There's the reason why I want to break this down in terms of this is because there's this connection to how almost the internet works that works very similarly to the midheaven in Aquarius. Why? The internet has represented every single part of humanity, from like the worst of the ish that we deal with to sometimes the best of the ish that we deal with, right? This is one of those circumstances to where even you coming through as a live stream as a midheaven in Aquarius is a midheaven in Aquarius thing, because someone just mentioned we have 71 likes because everyone is here supportive and vibey. So mind you, everyone's here supportive and vibey. What is that the Aquarius trying to do? Make everything supported, vibey, and have people come in from all walks of life to explain what they have to do. The midheaven in Aquarius, you are the weirdo who attracts the weirdos, who makes the weirdos feel okay. And I'm saying this not detrimentally at all, but like, yo, astrology, weird, right? And getting into this portion, this is really what that has to do with these energies. You get what I mean? So midheaven in Aquarius, one of the biggest parts of your success is your network. Your network is your net worth. I think I said that at some point, but like, yeah, your network is your net worth as a Aquarius. So you honestly having an online presence is pretty important as well, whether it be with your face or not, because like you just get to see how like the larger part of the collective works. And I think that's a really strong thing to do as someone with a midheaven in Aquarius. Now, what does that remind you of? He don't miss. You're damn right. Appreciate you. But when it gets to the IC of Leo with that midheaven in Aquarius, what's happening, right? So the IC of Leo here is like, it's funny because the midheaven in Aquarius doesn't care if the world praises them for what they're saying or what they're bringing out there. Like you can like post whatever and you'll just be like, yo, here it is. Somebody's going to rock with it. But in terms of your personal life, everyone around you kind of got to like praise you a little bit. I'm not even going to lie. Because if you have a midheaven in Aquarius, you're like, yo, I do all of this work for the people all the time. And when I get home, no one's excited to see me. Like I'm telling you, like your personal world, like you need to be like treated kind of like royalty. It's like, yo, I'm thinking of whoever runs the F Jerry account. You know what I mean? Like it could be anybody, you know, or like not just F Jerry, but Justin Leroy or y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, but like basically just like those people that like they're faceless accounts, you don't know nothing about them, and like they could be like really popping and everyone knows who they are. Justin LeBoy, there we go. But like, everyone's like, oh my God, like everyone knows who they are. And in their personal worlds, people need to cheer them on. Like they need real cheerleaders in their life to be like, yes, keep it going, keep it rocking, we love you. Cause like they're never gonna feel that same essence from the outside. They're only looking to genuinely impress people in their personal world, which is an interesting dichotomy. So they can get billions of likes and views on something and it'll be like, hey, did you like what I did? And they'll be like, yeah, I always like what you did. Like, no, but like, was it really actually good? Like their litness of what makes them feel successful, ironically, isn't from their success. It's from the depths of emotion that they can really foster in their personal world, and that love and passion that can pop up from that. So that is something to post. Exposing is crazy, but true. Listen. It's everybody. I have gone through all the people. It's just some of them pop out a certain way, and whoever's in here, I'm like, this maybe you need to hear it like that. We just flowing through with the energy. So I appreciate you. But that's pretty much what goes on a lot of the time with the Midheaven and Aquarius. But you are supposed to reach a larger audience than you are thinking already. I promise you that. Okay, cool. So now we get into the last Midheaven piece, right? So Midheaven and Pisces, y'all are like, and you see me just looking up. I'm just looking up into nothing. I'm just like, y'all are like the dreamy people, the most dreamy of them. And you live the dreams. You are low-key a little bit of that Delulu, but that Delulu actually is your Salulu. And I can speak on that canonically speaking. So when it gets to the idea of that Midheaven and Pisces, there's this certain idea where it's like life is truly a dream. And because life is truly a dream, you can kind of make stuff up. I always have this joke with Pisces about how they're like the instant manifestors, because like Pisces as the energy isn't even supposed to be on Earth. There was like an add-on DLC. You know what I'm saying? They're like, yeah, here we go. Yeah, the game's been out forever. We ended at Capricorn, but we'll give you the DLC. Like, here's Aquarius, here's Pisces. Y'all got some characters now. Oh, but the reason why I'm saying this as the main character energy of Pisces is that you are probably low key the like hidden character. I don't know if you ever played one of those video games where like there's like the hidden character, and it's like, who's this hidden character? And then you actually get in. It's like, oh shoot, it's Sora from Smash Bros. That's crazy. Like like there's just like this extra part to it, and no one expects you to kind of be in the places that you end up either, which is something interesting. Because with Midheaven and Pisces, you really draw your world based on what you just think is going to happen. Like if you're a Pisces Midheaven and you have a dream where you're like in the perfect shape that you always imagine, like you get up the next day and you go make that dream body, and you'll be like, oh shoot, I've been working out now for like, I don't know, few months, and I look exactly the way I was thinking about before. Let me dream about something else then. I'm telling you, Midheaven and Pisces, y'all get to make stuff up. And like, well, as soon as you do, it happens. You get what I'm saying? I like how he taps into each sign energy when he starts explaining, but appreciate the love, the little details, Speaking of the little details, that's the other side of that Pisces Midheaven. You see what I did there? I'm nice. I'm the best. Subscribe to me, boy. Hey, it's lit. Let me stop. But for real, when it gets to the IC is in Virgo. And so you are going to be sitting there tapping in and understanding the little portions underneath the layers of it, right? So one thing about Midheaven and Pisces is just different than like a normal run-of-the-mill Pisces, that the Midheaven and Pisces is like, they know what details they saw. And there's something about the IC and Virgo where the more you know the rules, the more you know how to break them. Like the IC and Virgo really does read like all the in between things, and they're like, yeah, but this doesn't resonate with me, so I'm just gonna let it go, and I'm gonna do this instead, and like it will work. Like it will literally work. It's the most annoying thing to watch. Like it'll work, and it'll be like, yo, we don't let anybody in here after 10 p.m. And then you show up and they're like, yeah, I know it's 11 p.m., but like, you just have a vibe about you. There's just something about you, and just go in, and you're like, ha ha ha, they didn't know that I literally knew that I wasn't allowed in. But that's how it worked. Like, I'm telling y'all don't make no sense. I appreciate y'all in your existence, how y'all be pulling stuff off, but it don't make no sense. Oh snap, caught you during the live very late. Glad to see you as well. And the replay is going to be up and available. I'm just breaking down all the signs, and there will be timestamps to this in like 2 days. I remember one time I posted something immediately and everyone was like, timestamps now, captions now. I'm like, do you know how the internet works, it don't work like that. This is like a 2-hour live stream. Give me like 5 minutes. Now, but for real, I do appreciate the love and the excitement as well, as far as everything's concerned. Sounds like they kind of find the obtainable and the absurd. That's a great point, my friend. They 100% find the obtainable in the absurd. And sometimes they have to be the absurd, and then everything becomes attainable. It's the weirdest thing to watch. But that is exactly what you're able to kind of do, to tap in with that and that energy, right? Just check the chart in the midheavens and Libra. Got to go back and listen closely. And that's what this is for. This is literally just to give you all a context of what that midheaven looks like. Now, mind you, if you ever really want to fully talk about the midheaven, I mentioned earlier, success, money, just clout as we know it, and as well as you maybe even like, yo, I want to be a content creator, yo, I want to make my brand, yo, I want to do this. All of this energy that I talk about, this is the energy signature for you to tap into, for you to notice. My nose has been itching this entire live stream. That's how I know I've been going off, because I'm like, I've been going off this whole time, and I'm like, why does my nose like right here just keep like itching? I guess that's because, you know, source looking out, universe looking out. I've been out here spitting. Y'all know the information, but it's been bugging me out. So if you've been seeing me do that, I apologize. It's been bugging me this whole time, because I'm like, I know I'm spitting, but like, this is really inconvenient, you know what I'm saying? But I do appreciate y'all for pulling through. You know, I love the master. You can't push time faster than it moves. That was for myself. I'm not gonna lie. I had to say that for me. I'm not gonna lie. I had to say that for me. Not gonna put it past you. But yeah, as far as like the midheaven and stuff, it's not something that happens overnight. To kind of point out to y'all, I'm kind of done with the main portion of what I was getting to. But the midheaven doesn't happen overnight. This is just something that you can like lean towards, and as you lean towards that kind of the main things start to formulate, right? So in terms of how you go about this, like some people, they give me my credit, right? They'll be like, yo, and I appreciate this too, because this really goes to show, even with the midheaven, where people might be like, yo, man, love your work in astrology. You love how you change this or you do this a specific way. Oh, you're the GOAT, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I appreciate the love. But for me, I'm like, oh, with my midheaven being in Cap, it's like, oh, anytime I've tried to like up the ante, or like, let's make this more professional, or like, let's do this on YouTube so everybody can see, or like, let's add another layer to this, or let's bring in everybody else with this capacity, that kind of adds along to it. So I really just want to show y'all that, like, even though I'm someone who tries to actually follow the midheaven, it doesn't mean that like, oh, I'm automatically here, $1 billion throwing it at everybody here, it's lit. Like, it's not just happens overnight. But hit me up in about 10 years, you feel me? You know what I'm saying? Y'all stay through. I got slide a little something for everybody. No, but for real, it's just definitely one of those things that's really like dope to do. And someone just said, like, thank you for breaking it down in a way where it's easily digestible. And I appreciate that. And that's kind of the hardest part to astrology. And I can't sit here and fault other people for not being able to explain things in a way like that. It's a very heady science, you know, like there's a lot of things that oftentimes with astrology, we can get into astrological terms too hard and you might miss out the whole point. But I want to make sure that with my work, for people who are nerds and they know their stuff already, we can nerd it out, right? But for people who are new to this, like, let's make sure that y'all understand this. I think the issue with astrology is that like it hasn't been as accessible in real time in the modern world that we live in. And so my goal is to make sure that it makes sense to the modern mind as far as how astrology is moving and how it has been advancing forward, because we're not in the 1600s anymore. We're not in anything else. Some of these definitions have changed over time because the world that we know has changed so drastically, even if you look at the last 10 years. So this is my job to bring to you the modern portion from the modern maverick, you know, to break all that down. But I do appreciate that. He said, I'm going to claim all the MCs and become the avatar. I will claim all the destinies. And low key, the biggest part to your chart is like, the reason why knowing your astrology is so important is because we all have every zodiac sign in our chart. The concept is that we all are supposed to master all the energies. The thing is that we lean into the ones that we know first. Like, oh, I'm a triple fire sign. I'm a firebender, lit. Boom. Yeah, I got some earth. Boom. Let me learn some earth. Now I know my air. I just talked for an hour and some change, like, to everybody else. But like, maybe I got to work on the water. You know, like these are the ideas of where that goes. So I hope that this ends up helping and get y'all tapped into your midheaven. Dude, you're so spot on. Don't know why people gatekeep knowledge, share the wealth. Yeah, it's about sharing the wealth because it's like, I think for me, I never feel like I'm losing out on anything teaching the people, because every time I do this, one of y'all might reach out and get a reading. It feeds into itself. I get to put my money back into the work and into the craft, teach more people, let everybody else know. It's been a beautiful time, and I appreciate you all for being here. And yeah, thank y'all for real. Astro theme is low key the ish. Astro theme is where I came up on, to be honest. So like, if y'all rock with Astro theme, I came up on that. But besides that, I'm about to head out. I appreciate you all for being here. Make sure that you subscribe if you haven't. Tap in for a reading. And yeah, if y'all have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on whatever social media pops through. I'm always on Instagram because it's just a habit at this point, and I have to respond back to comments as much as I can. But besides from that, peace out. I'm going to see y'all for the lunar eclipse. Stay beautiful, and I'm going to go out before I forget.